Does geography impact longevity? That's today on the Longevity Lab. Welcome into the Longevity Lab. David Lamb here with Dr. Stephen Austad. Dr. Austad, how are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you.
You, like so many of us, suffering from allergies, it gives you a deeper, so, it's better for podcasting, it's better for, so that deeper tone.
Gives me that stentorian radio voice, yeah.
It's effortless. Yes, it is effortless. All right, so today, an interesting article that I sent to you, and you had fun with it. You're not going to believe the city that some study found out was the best place to live for longevity. I know we're going to get into that, but a New York Times op-ed piece caught your attention. Tell us about this piece and what was it that caught your attention?
Yeah, so the piece was by a very well-known Stanford cardiologist named Eric Topol, a brilliant guy from all respects.
So an op-ed about cardiology, or that's
no, it wasn't about cardiology, which is what you might expect. It was about aging, and he's just written a book on aging, which apparently he hasn't really thought very deeply about, because the article was about, well, all these aging researchers are coming up with all these suggestions about how we might stay healthy longer, blood transfusions and reprogramming their cells. But what we really ought to do is we really ought to be focusing on the three big diseases: heart disease, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. And I read that and I thought, he doesn't realize that the aging researchers are trying to address all those things at the same time, right? Not individually like he is, but I think that physicians in particular have been trained to think about one disease at a time.
Right.
And he doesn't apparently realize that the whole point of targeting aging processes itself is to address all diseases at the time, all diseases of aging, or most diseases of aging. And he also didn't consider the things that degrade the quality of your later life, like osteoporosis, like arthritis, back pain, loss of muscle strength, all those things. He just focused on the diseases. So I got irritated, so I wrote an article. I wrote a letter to the New York Times, which we'll see if they publish or not.
All right. And in the letter, what was your...
I just said, Dr. Topol apparently hasn't thought very deeply and doesn't really appreciate what geroscience is all about. He knows some things about it, but in fact, he's ignored the fact that it addresses all the diseases that he thinks so important, plus many, many more diseases that he hasn't thought about.
I'm curious, you have studied the subject of longevity a long time. You like we've said before, you were studying this when it wasn't really cool. You were back in the day. Do you appreciate and accept those from other disciplines weighing in on the subject of longevity?
Sure, if they've done their homework, absolutely. I mean, we learn a lot from people from other disciplines, and they have a different perspective, and a different perspective is almost always useful. I mean, when I came into the field, I was a real outsider, right. So I appreciate that. But if you're going to do that, I think you need to do your homework so that you're not out there trying to reinvent what somebody invented 30 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. And makes sense, and we can look for that in the New York Times, see if they publish your follow-up. All right, let's go to this study. So this city was just named the #1 longevity hotspot in the U.S. for its quality of life. Okay, so if I were to ask you to come up with the top 2 or 3 cities that you think would make the list, what would those 2 or 3 cities be?
One would be San Francisco, Seattle, New York, places like that.
Okay.
What they came up with, it was so ridiculous that I really burst out laughing when I first read this.
You did.
Washington, D.C.?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
So in this new report, Washington, D.C. came out on top thanks to high levels of physical activity among its residents, as well as lower smoking and drinking rates.
Well, those are all good things, but there's a lot of other things about living in Washington.
Okay, what are they?
Some of it has to do with poverty. Good health follows wealth. That's one take-home message. And if you looked at the longest-lived counties in the country, they're all the wealthiest counties. Washington, D.C. in fact, we have a very good measure of population health. We call it life expectancy.
Okay.
Washington, D.C. has not even got the life expectancy of an average American. So how they would choose this to be the place most likely for somebody to live to be 150 years old, which I feel responsible for that particular number since I kind of invented it 25 years ago. It just boggles my mind because what they looked at, besides these things that you mentioned that were clearly associated with health, smoking, physical activity, they looked at things like social capital, social networks, hospitals. They've got very good hospitals, religiosity, divorce rates, things like that. Those are all things that affect the quality of life, but they don't really have much of an impact on longevity. Okay. So it's not surprising to me that Washington, D.C., because it's not a wealthy place, falls below the national average in life expectancy. I would say it's one of the last big cities that I would expect to find.
The other, the top three, so D.C. was number one, followed by San Francisco Bay Area, Bridgeport, Connecticut. You mentioned San Francisco, so that was on your list. Bridgeport, Connecticut. I don't know if you've ever been there.
Yeah, I have. It's it's really kind of a suburb of New York, and it's a wealthy place. Yeah, those places are very plausible. I would believe it for there, but Washington, D.C., and then I saw that this came out in Travel and Leisure magazine, and I thought, is somebody trying to encourage tourism to Washington, D.C.?
It's payola. Yeah, somebody's trying to get up the rates. So how significant do you think those, because it touched on physical activity, lower smoking, drinking rates, how important are those factors?
Those factors are all very, very important. The things that I question is the gender they have. Well, so women live longer than men. So if there are a lot of women in Washington because there's a lot of offices that have staff that are primarily female. But religiosity, family values, social networks, those things are probably contributing, but they don't overcome bad air, poverty, those sorts of things, which we also know Washington, D.C. has plenty of.
Right. And you and I have had this conversation before, but something else that touches on, you talk about, and you touched on it, but I want to dig a little deeper on this, volunteering, religious congregations, civic engagement. How important and how might those factors impact how long you live?
Well, social engagement is clearly important. Social engagement when you're older is quite important. And those are kind of forms of social engagement, but there's nothing special about those forms. Social engagement, having plenty of friends, people to talk to, people to relieve stress with, those things are important. But anything that facilitates those are important. It doesn't have to be volunteerism. Volunteerism shows a certain amount of public spiritedness, which is wonderful, but it doesn't really have much to do with how long you're going to stay healthy or how long you live.
And what about religious? What does religion offer an individuals who have an active faith and an active participation in a local congregation, regardless of the religion specifics? But in your studies, what have you found? How are those faith communities? How did they benefit?
Those typically are longer lived than other communities, and so I think it has to do with maybe stress reduction, a feeling of acceptance of your lot, lower stress, a number of things like that. None of it, though, has as big an impact as money, and we don't really understand why money has that impact because. Yes, moneyed people have more access, let's say, to medical care. But you find the same thing in places like the United Kingdom, where it has a national health service, so it's available to everybody. In those places still, money and health follow one another. Wealth and health are tightly linked. Even in Alabama, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but the longest lived county in Alabama is Shelby County. And it's by far the wealthiest county. Yeah.
I told you that at the gym where I work out, I saw this sign of a study that was underway, and you had to be over the age of 60, some certain requirements, and so I fit it. So I've joined this study, and what the study is, is whether I'm trying to remember what it measures, but basically the health. What is healthier? Is living in an urban area or living in a rural area? And whenever I told you about that, you said I know the answer.
Yeah, the answer is very clear. Living in an urban area, people live much longer than in rural areas.
And why is that?
Well, probably a whole variety of things. It's harder to get to health facilities. It's loneliness is a bigger problem because there's not lots and lots of people around you. It's hard, dangerous work if you're a farmer, say, living in areas.
Right.
Also, the kids tend to leave, so that there's not so much intergenerational help available. Whole variety of reasons, but the effect is it's been looked at extensively, and it's very clear that living in an urban area is healthier.
Yeah, and you work in an urban area, but you live on a farm, so you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah,
maybe.
that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
That's right. I have to live within 25 miles of a good library. Is the way I think about it.
It must happen. It must happen. So I'm curious about at these longevity hotspots, and maybe DC is the outlier, but this correlation between certain social structures and longer lifespans. And I'm wondering if maybe we should be investing more as the United States, Alabama, our area here specifically, in community infrastructure rather than just medical interventions.
I think you're absolutely right. That's something we should be investing a lot in. And one of the lessons from some of these longevity hotspots is that it's hard to change people's behavior without changing the environment. Mm-hmm. And having the proper environment is really, really important. You have an environment that makes it very easy to stay physically active, that makes it very easy to stay socially engaged, that makes it very easy to get healthy food, mm-hmm. and not so easy to get unhealthy food.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that kind of infrastructure, which, by the way, UAB is with community partners is doing a program kind of like this. It's called Live Health Smart Alabama.
I'm familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're trying to take tried and true lessons from other places that have been successful at increasing their health. One of the places that when Live Health Smart Alabama first got started, I was telling them about, and we actually had some Zoom calls, is a place in the Netherlands called Groningen in the Netherlands. And it has a lot of superficial similarities to Birmingham. It used to be an industrial city. The industry has kind of died, and now it's really dominated by a big medical school. And about 15 years ago, the people at the medical school got together with the people in the city government and said, let's make this the healthiest city in the Netherlands. And they started all kinds of public projects to do that. They made health the number one aspiration of the city. It became sort of everybody bought into we're the healthy city. And they did it. It's now the healthiest city in the Netherlands. I can tell you that this is one of the things they did. When you get off the train there's a big parking structure right there outside the train station, but it's a parking structure for bicycles.
Oh, wow.
So people bicycle everywhere there. They have races. They have huge public events that have health as their theme. And we could learn a lot from places like Groningen.
I know the Blue Zone, the book, the documentaries, the Netflix. It's kind of everywhere, a bit ubiquitous now. It seems like this Blue Zone conversations. But one of the things that they are doing now is in cities. They are, cities. I think Jacksonville, Florida. I think somewhere in Arizona. Different cities have taken this up. It does seem as though if a city can combine that medical community and get the people to really engage, it seems as though from the stats I'm seeing, it is possible to make some improvement there.
Oh, yeah. The big success story has been Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay.
Galveston, Texas just bought into this. And basically, but you need buy-in from everybody, from city officials, from community organizations. But if you get that, you can have an amazing effect, and it really drops medical costs ridiculously far in a city. So I think it's a great approach. The person that kind of invented this approach is a guy named Dan Buettner, that we're hoping to get out here to talk to us in the fall.
Yeah, would love to hear that conversation, and because he's doing some really interesting things in a number of different areas. All right, so your takeaway from not only just DC, but the role geography has on longevity.
Yeah, it's a big impact. It's a big impact because of the social environment, the medical environment, just the physical environment. And it doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you look at a map of the U.S. and you say, okay, where are the longest live groups and where are the shortest live groups? Well, the shortest live groups, actually, they're all in the South. The southern states plus West Virginia. The longest live ones are places where people have to walk, or people have money. I mean, I keep coming back to money, but money is a huge driver of health, and we don't really understand why. Education is a huge driver as well. I tell my students, I said, just by getting a college degree, you're increasing your life expectancy by about 7 years. So places with high education, lots of money, those are the places that live the longest. We want to figure out what it is about the education, what it is about the money. Some of it's lifestyle stuff, but there's more to it than that.
Yeah, and that's what's going to be studied. All right, a shorter version today, but a fun conversation. And our apologies to D.C. I'm sure D.C. is a lovely city.
It's a lovely place. I'm going there Sunday. I'm going to enjoy myself.
Okay, all right. You could report back and tell us maybe it's much more active than you thought it was. All right, Dr. Stephen Austad, good to see you. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun, as always.
As always. We'll see you next time here on the Longevity Lab.